I think the idea of Justyn Ross going to the Kansas City Chiefs is a very fascinating situation. For those of you who are unaware of who Justyn Ross is, played at Clemson and was really good as a freshman, but then after some injuries, hasn't really been able to really replicate that production. The best season he had statistically was around 850 yards, although if you know me, when it comes to wide receivers, that's not really where I care too much. I don't care too much about production. I care much more about tape. Which is, part of why he has fallen. Although, him being undrafted was certainly a surprise, even for someone like me who wasn't as high on him as maybe some others were. He was 119th on the consensus big board, so him not even getting drafted at all, certainly a surprise when guys who are only going to be special teamers get drafted pretty consistently in round 6 and 7. I'm surprised no one took a shot on Ross. Then, some mock drafts had him going as early as 22nd overall, which is crazy to think that he ended up going undrafted. So, what do we make of all of this? He's going to the Kansas City Chiefs. How good of a player can he be? First off, totally worth the flyer to add, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. But let's watch his tape and you can see why, even without the injury concerns, why he might not be the most hyped up prospect. So, let's get into the film, talk about kind of the negatives and the positives that he could bring to Kansas City. So first, let's start off with a play like this. This is a good example of kind of how Ross would get his wins in college. Worth mentioning, isn't the fastest receiver. Didn't have the fastest 40 time, so did not even break 4.6, so that's definitely something that's going to hurt him. But he never really won in college using speed, so I wouldn't be that concerned about it necessarily because that's not where his wins came from. They largely came through things like this, where it's going to end up being a one-on-one matchup with the player who I have in that box with Ross. And look at how, right when this play begins, what you're going to notice is that, so right at this point, you see him kind of looking as though he's going to be going over the middle. That's what it appears as though Ross is going to be doing. And so much so, in fact, that the defensive back who is covering him has his hips completely turned towards the middle of the field, towards the offense's right. And that's what Ross is trying to do. And this is what Ross does a really good job of, in fact, is his route running and understanding leverage, getting you to think that he's going to the inside and then being able to move to the outside. So now when he does cut towards the outside, he is able to get a good amount of separation and make the catch for a touchdown. So because of that, that's kind of what he can do, is he can find ways to make stuff like that happen. These are things that, can work at the NFL level. Doesn't mean it will. I don't know. It's hard. That's why evaluating wide receivers is so difficult, because who knows if guys at the next level will fall for this, but it's a good step knowing that guys at the college level did. Also, going over to something like this, I thought he did a good job against zone coverage. Now, some people say, well, listen, if you're an NFL wide receiver, you should do well against zone coverage, so who cares that much? And I get that argument, but I think it's different when you're an undrafted player, right? You're not drafting someone in the first round because they're good in zone coverage, but for an undrafted player, no, that is definitely a tool that they could use, especially one for Kansas City. They've struggled at getting routes like this in these past few years. They've really struggled at these underneath routes, at just being able to methodically move down the field when teams do play zone coverage. They play cover 2. You've seen Kansas City have some struggles at being able to adjust, and a big part of it is they don't really have the guys who can do it. Ross could be one of those guys, and if he can be good at this could be a great way for him to get a lot of playing time. Watch how you're going to see Ross, again, run a good route there. He didn't give anything away until right when he cut, so there is a window where the quarterback can make this throw. As you see, that's what happens, and Ross is able to get a decent amount of yards there, and even does a good job after the catch of fighting forward and picking up a first down when that didn't appear to be on the table. Again, will that work at the NFL level? To some degree, some of that will work, and that's the hope, is that he can be someone who can help your offense. It's not necessarily getting the best player who is in this draft or anything like that. But again, for an undrafted free agent, there's literally no risk and a ton of upside. Something like this is another interesting example. And again, something I wouldn't be shocked if this is something that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to try to get accomplished in their offense next season. I think that part of why Kansas City traded away Tyreek Hill was they said, listen, Tyreek Hill is awesome, but what we need is guys who can, work underneath, guys who can be possession players, and that is what Justyn Ross could potentially be, especially as a potential wide receiver 4. The way this play works is the plus receiver, so the guy who's closest towards the sideline, is going to be running out and blocking. Ross is going to get the catch, and he's the guy who's the second highest closest receiver towards the top of the screen, and then he's going to run towards the sideline. Watch how right when this play begins, you do see that quarterback gets the ball to Ross, and at this spot, like, okay, you're not expecting too much from this situation. And listen, when we talk about some other players, you might be seeing an explosive move to get past someone and get a touchdown. That's not what's happening here. However, again, Ross makes a little bit of a move and is able to pick up a little bit more yards than you would have expected. So if you can just do little things like that, there's value there. This is an above replacement level player, and getting an above replacement level player from an undrafted free agent, that alone is going to add some value. And going over to something like this is really where he got his wins in college. And this is, if you're a fan of Justyn Ross and think that he's not just a good pickup given where he was drafted, which was never, but he's actually like a legit good receiver, this is probably what you would point to. It's going to be zone coverage, a cover 3 zone, and I've circled Ross on this play. Watch how right when this play begins, you see how Ross is going to do a good job of kind of, again, faking as though he's going towards his left. It's just all route running. That's really where he thrives, I think. So when he does cut back over the middle, he gets some separation and makes the catch. And that's just kind of, again, what you're hoping he can do. Maybe he won't be able to do it consistently against, NFL cornerbacks. That's totally reasonable to suggest. Well, maybe he'll do it consistently against linebackers and you'll put him in a slot. Like there's ways to get a benefit out of this. So even with the injury concerns, it still is surprising to me that he went, as late as he did. Like, look, one more example will be something like this. This is another, I think, a real example of what he'll probably be asked to do in Kansas City, which is stuff like this. It's zone coverage that he's going up against, and you see where he is on the field. Right when this play begins, what you notice is that, again, kind of looks as though he's going to be going towards the outside. He's positioned closer towards his left of the player who he's going up against than towards his right. So when he moves to the right, the ball is there as well, and he's able to make the catch. These are the little things he'll probably be asked to do in Kansas City. Be a possession receiver and allow them to move the ball down the field. That's how I suspect he'll be used. I do think there is a subsect of people who are saying, no, this guy has elite potential, and the only reason that he fell and didn't get drafted was due to injury concerns. I don't know if I'm quite there. Now, he is someone that, for me, he did not make my top 10 wide receivers list. I didn't think about him, though. Like, I evaluated his tape and said, okay, there's stuff to like here, but, I just don't know if he's explosive enough to really be an outside guy at the NFL level. That's kind of my biggest concern with him. But do I think that he can be someone who can be effective at the NFL level, especially in this Chiefs offense, who could use a guy like that? Yeah, I do. Again, he's going to be kind of behind Sky Moore, who is awesome at that role. So, I don't know if Ross is going to be quite as good. But listen, you use more than 3 receivers, in an NFL season. It's not like only 3 receivers are going to get snaps, and guys are going to go down, so you need some depth. And I think if he gets an opportunity, he could be all right. So I've seen some people online saying, oh my God, this is going to be the next big thing. Again, it's possible. Who knows of wide receivers? It's really difficult to evaluate, and it is weird that he fell completely out of the draft altogether. So I'm not trying to sit here and say that can't happen, because it could. But I think realistically, you got a player who should be able to come in and contribute as an undrafted free agent, and that's all you can ask for. So that's what I think about this. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on Justyn Ross to the Kansas City Chiefs? Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.